Good morning. News just doesn't stop this year. It is just clobbering us, Joe. Absolutely clobbering us.
I don't want the beat down. I don't want to be beaten down anymore.
I really am trying to find some uplifting news out there. It's not easy. Well, NVIDIA's through the roof. How's that?
There we go.
You got NVIDIA stock? Congratulations.
You're doing great.
Good morning, Brendan Rendo with the Homes Orlando team, and joined as always by Joseph Dion. We got a lot of stuff going on. There's actually talk of higher interest rates from the Fed. We've got debt continuing to grow for everyone in the United States. We've still got a ton of trouble in the commercial sector. So everything's just coming together beautifully into the perfect storm. So let's hop in. And this one just kind of caught me a little off guard. This came out yesterday. Larry Sanders, who's a former Treasury Secretary, came out and said that he felt the next move of the Fed would actually be a rate increase.
You shut your mouth.
Nope, I can't.
Keyword former.
But you look at it and you look at the items that he's looking at, and you could kind of say, yeah, if you're looking at these numbers and these numbers are correct, if they are correct. You know, we're kicked off January, CPI jumped 3.1%, PPI jumped 0.3%, well over the expected 0.1. Payroll went through the roofs with that new calculation that they have. And our GDP grew 3.3% versus 2%. So he's kind of right in that if I'm the Fed and I'm looking to, the whole point of raising interest rates is to slow down your economy, cool things off, push your inflation down. When you get numbers like this, you got to, well, how do you keep pushing it down? You raise the rates. You actually have to raise the rates. And to me, it's logical, but man, the feel that it's two worlds out there right now. The feel you get is that everyone's hurting. Mm-hmm. I hopped on a Nextdoor yesterday because that's everyone's favorite place to complain, and I felt bad for the person because she was talking about her rent going up and then her electric bill doubling, and she's like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. We need the government to step in. And, my thought was, well, the government's the one who caused it in the first place. Why would you look for the people who caused the problem to solve the problem?
Because it creates more dependency on the government. Wait, I won't go down this road. I'll keep quiet.
Yeah.
I'll move the mic out of camera.
Yeah, it's not like, they pumped $10 trillion into a system and didn't think they'd get any inflation. But you feel their pain. You really do. You're sitting there going, I gotcha. I get you every time I go to the grocery store these days. And, how do you solve it? Well, one, you stop printing money, and you at some point, we've got to hold our governments accountable for what they spend. Because you look at it, and this is released from the Federal Reserve this week, and this is household debt and credit. In the past year, household debt has gone up $604 billion. $604 billion. Everyone's living off of credit cards. Everyone's living off of debt right now. And then you start looking at the delinquencies, and what are you seeing? All the delinquencies are starting to pop up. Auto loans are up. Credit cards have gone up over 2%, and delinquencies of over 90 days. So that debt burden is continuing to crush people overall. And it's actually crushing our government as well. There was an auction yesterday of 20-year bonds. It was only about $18 billion. And there's something that's called the tail. What the tail is basically the government offers the bond at this interest rate. Okay.
Yep.
But then they sell at this interest rate. And the tail was actually 3 basis points higher than what they were offered at. So what does that mean? It means people don't want the bonds. So how do you actually get people to buy these things? You have to increase the yield on them in order to get people to buy them, which means that you're actually pushing the price of the bond down. Which that's scary, because as we went over last week, we've got over, was it $9 trillion to $10 trillion that has to be refinanced in the next year of national debt. So if all this stuff, all of a sudden we're trying to offer it at 4%, and people are saying, no, we actually don't feel real comfortable in the U.S. being able to cover their debt, what's it going to do to the yields? It's going to push all the yields up. So we're going to, will we see lower mortgage rates? No, we'll actually end up seeing higher mortgage rates, because all the yields for all this debt are going to have to be pushed up. And that's just something that you really got to look at and think long term down the road. I mean, I know China this week trying to infuse their system, get themselves back to life. They cut their interest rate, their central bank rate, 1/4 point.
Like Japan, massive issues in Japan right now, right? With theirs, I think their public debt, like 250% of their GDP right now, which doesn't correlate, right? Like, but you start looking at it, it's like you've got major issues in like the Southeast Eurozone, Spain and stuff like that, like major, and you kind of pause. We said this for a while, like we're kind of a world economy now, right? Like things that happen in China impact us, things that happen to us impact China, and so forth, and Europe and Germany and London and all these other places, like, right? We all kind of pull at each other. I almost feel like we've got to kind of sit there and say, some of these major, like they've got to kind of say, hey, we got to put our differences aside. We got to have some deep conversations. And how are we going to fix this on a world scale before we create a much, much bigger issue?
Yeah. A great reset? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not saying that's what's going to, like, there are probably a lot of countries that would love a great reset, that would really, really benefit from it. And it's probably the smaller guys that would benefit the most.
They benefit the most. Yeah, right? We'd be hurt the most.
China, US, China, Japan, Germany, like we do a great reset, great. Like, yes, that helps us, but we're kind of like, we kind of control things a lot more, right? You can see if there was like a reset, you can see some emerging economies and countries that really gain powers with something like that. So I don't think something like that will happen, because the big dogs, the top 5, probably not going to want to allow that to happen. But
well, right now we've got 4 of the top 6 in recession. Yeah. The only ones who aren't, quote, in recession is India and us. That's it. Everyone else is in a recession right now. So if you've got these 2 on top and these 4 on the bottom, what's going to happen? These 4 are going to pull us down. They're going to pull us into a recession. It's just how long can the Fed and the Treasury manipulate things enough that they say that we're quote not in a recession.
And you take, like, let's think bigger economics, right? Let's think about budgeting. And, right now, if you're in a good, sound fiscal budget, right, you should be operating in a surplus as a country, right? Like you should be spending less than you're bringing in, right? Basic economics, right? Spend less than you bring in. But that doesn't happen. Hence why credit card numbers for Americans are so high, right? Like, so let's think about as the country. Well, we know the country's operating at a deficit, right? And right now they've been averaging a 6% deficit off of their GDP. How long can you operate at a 6%? Because there's no end in sight right now. This year we're at a 6. Next year we're at a 6. The following year that probably jumps to an 8, because your interest payments on all that debt is going to get higher, right? And then where does it kind of go from there? Because if we get to double-digit deficit, right, like that's not good.
No, to me the hardest part is, and I was having the discussion, was at some point all of us have to say we're all going to have to take a little bit of pain, and that's to me is the hardest part. Is no one wants to feel that pain. We've taken away the pain part of living. But when do you learn the most? When you fail.
Yeah.
You fail, you learn. You pray you don't do the same stupid thing again.
Yep.
But the pain teaches you what not to do. And I think in a lot of ways, both economically and culture, we've just kind of pulled that away from everyone. We don't want you to feel pain. Well, go outside, run around, fall down, get back up. That's how you learn.
That's how you learn.
And it comes a point where all of us just going to say, okay, you know what? We're all going to feel a little pain. You know what? Maybe I don't need that third car. Maybe I don't need, 3 houses. Maybe I don't need 8 TVs in my house.
Maybe I don't need
Well, you got how many 4 kids, but at some point, you got a choice. You either sacrifice willingly, or you get knocked down, because economically it just isn't feasible anymore. So you got this going on. Then we've been talking a lot over the past couple of weeks about the commercial real estate, and then things continue to develop in that arena. One of the biggest ones is the pension funds have cut back tremendously on their investments in commercial real estate over the past year. There's a 45% drop in the investment from pension funds for commercial real estate. So what does that mean? It means money's tighter. So what happens to the cost of that money for the commercial guys? It's going to go up. Yep. And then you look at this one as well, is the net lease volume fell by 51% from 2022. That's tremendous, because that your net lease income is what you use to qualify for your refinance.
Yep.
So if that's dropped 51%, what are those chances of getting refinanced?
All I'm saying is, where is this 51% here in Florida? Like,
I know you're shopping around right now.
I'm like we got to decide if we're going to renew or expand or go to another location. And I'm sitting here going, man, like, how does it keep going up and up? Like, we hear these numbers nationally, but we're not experiencing that here in Orlando.
Cisco, I'm sure you can get at a really good price.
We're moving our headquarters. I don't want to live in San Francisco. Nothing against California, but I can't afford it. I can barely afford Florida. I hear the government. I hear New York's not pro business right now, so I'm not going to go to New York.
Remington, the largest gun manufacturer in the U.S., is moving out. They announced it yesterday.
Did not hear that.
Going to Georgia. They're done with New York. They've had enough. Just you're looking at all this economics, and now you start to understand why these numbers have started to change. In that homeownership, we used to figure every 7 to 8 years, people would move, roughly, in that ballpark. Well, it's actually jumped to close to almost 12 years for people to reside in their houses. 12 years.
12 years. Gosh, 11.9 years in one home?
In one home. I'm 2018, so I'm 6 years now, and really don't have any thoughts of moving.
When did I buy my house? 2016. We're approaching 8 years. Holy cow.
Yeah. So you're looking at that, and you're like, that actually makes sense, because economically, again, doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you got 2 and 5 baby boomers. They've been in their houses for 20 plus years.
Well, they're staying on a gold mine. They got a lot of money.
But the problem is they got all that. Then you try and find a new house.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, you've just eaten all your profit up, and then you still probably going to have a mortgage on top of it.
Well, you take this. I'll use my parents as an example. They've been in their home since '98, so they're ahead of that 20 year. Like, they're part of that equation. I don't know if they're baby boomers. I don't know. They're 67 and 68. That's baby boomers, right? They're 67 years old. 67, 68.
Yeah.
They're Ellen, I think, right? But you go into that, and the reality is, they wanted to downsize, they wanted to change homes. But when I sat down and looked at everything with them and had a deep conversation, I was like, you've almost paid off your mortgage. Your mortgage is like, let's just be real. They've got, nearly a 2,000 square foot 3-2 on a golf course. It's nice. All in, taxes, insurance, everything, mortgage payment, $790.
What?
I was like, you guys can't afford to leave. You can't rent a 1-1 for that. And I'm not saying they would rent, but I was like, if you were to try to buy something else, it would be better off for you to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to hire. And like my mom was like, I want a smaller house. It's too much to clean. I was like, it would be cheaper for you to hire a cleaner than to try to take your equity and buy something else and finance a little. Right?
Cheaper than living in an RV.
Pretty much.
Wow. 700.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that nice?
I feel pretty good that, we're all in right now, like $1,919. When I look at the new payments for my clients, and they're sitting at $3,000, $3,200, $3,500, I'm like, man, are we lucky? Are we lucky we bought when we did at the price that we did? I feel extremely fortunate overall. So there's still a lot going on. I'm not sure where it's going to go from here, but I know we can't keep the debt up. At some point, the debt has got to stop, or we're just going to bury ourselves. It's just going to become too expensive for everybody to even live anymore, it's getting close to it overall. Well, let's hop in and let's look at our numbers for the week in Orlando. We actually had a really nice jump. We went from 274 to 414 the first week.
Nice little pop.
Yep. Which kind of makes sense because that's really you figure the first week of January, people are excited. It's the new year. Let's go find a new home. Right? Yeah, rates were still good.
Again.
It's interesting because you and I have been stuck on that 6.5%. And we've seen the past week and a half, since they creep back up to over 7, that the mortgage application volume has dropped quite a bit.
Yeah.
It seems like that 6.5 is really that sweet spot.
Like I think year over year, we're down 11% year over year in mortgage volume and down 10% week over week.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yep. Yeah. And people are just, tightening their, it's amazing how that little bit can make that much of a difference, but it does. It obviously is because we see it every week in the volume going up and down. And this was interesting that the median price, even though the volume went up, the median price decreased 7.4%.
Interesting.
So sellers are tightening a little bit. Inventory decreased just a hair. So we've been really pretty steady at that 5,400 home volume for I think the past month. We're coming into March. Usually mid-March, end of March, you start to see that volume pick up as people get ready for the spring season.
Yep.
Our condos are, they're just holding steady at 115. I mean, they're not going anywhere. And we're got some interesting news this morning, but we got to confirm it all. We'll take care of that next week. But I got to tell you, I was working on a deal and it killing me. But over here in the Springs in Longwood, can you guess what the total capital contribution is to move into a condo over there?
Oh gosh, it's the Springs, which the Springs is notoriously high all the time. I feel like anytime I talk about it, like $2,000,
$3,500.
And the capital contribution, just for those that aren't aware, basically this is a fee that you pay at closing when you purchase. It's a one-time expense when you move in, but it's kind of just like, hey, you want to live here? Great. For the joy of living here, $3,500.
They have the master, which is $2,155. And then the condo HOA is another 2 months, and the HOA fee is $625. So you're adding another $1,300 on top of the $2,155.
Wow.
And I about fell over. I'm like, not only how do you buy it, how do you sell it? because that's a serious situation with a seller saying, look, if you want someone to move in here, you need to eat this or a good portion of it, because otherwise it's prohibitive for people to move in.
Yep.
Condo prices, they decreased about 10%, the median price. And our inventory, just a hair up, 11%. Then we hop into one of our favorite numbers, the original list to set to final list price. We're holding steady at that 94% right now. And the $1 million homes actually came up a little bit.
Okay.
I think we were 88% last week. We actually came back up to 93. So a little bit of recovery there. But one of the big things is our average days list to contract jumped to 65. And that was a pretty big overall jump when you look at it graphically, because we had dropped down to roughly 53. This is the first time we've actually broken over 60 days. Yeah. On that market. And then you see our inventory holding, pretty much holding steady for the past month and a half at that 5,400 units. And then the same thing with the condos. We jumped to 65 days. And again, you look at it, they are holding steady above that 60-day mark. That, I know a lot of people say 6 months is a buyer's market, but I think that rule of thumb is old school. Simply one, because of information available and the ease to look at properties over the way it used to be. I think 60 days really is your buyer's market now. If something is staying on the market more than 60 days, it's really jumped into your buyer's market. And then you see our inventory, again, just slow and steady, continuous move of condos inventory growing. But there's so many things. Boy, if you're looking at a condo, there's a lot of phone calls you need to make to that HOA to make sure everything. What is the capital contribution? January 1st, how much? It's not if, it's how much did the HOA fees go up? Are there any coming capital contributions? Because in a lot of the budgets, they've got in there that they're going to have a capital contribution, in 6 months for this or for that, because you're not going to escape it, and you don't want any surprises. You want to try to avoid as many surprises as you can when you're buying a condo. But what do you do if all of a sudden July the insurance company jumps themselves up in their interest rate, and the condo has to come back mid-year and do a adjustment to cover the cost of the increase in insurance? So there's a lot of concerns with purchasing a condo that I see currently overall. So that is our news for the week. We appreciate you joining us. As always, please like and subscribe, and join us again next Thursday. Thank you so much, Joe. Take care.
You as well.